Hey guys, welcome back to Let's Build a Zelda Coaster. My name's Tyler, and yes, it has been a while since I've uploaded a video to this series, but that's because I've been working on other things, mainly other parts of this theme park. I really wanted to finish the rest of the medieval section of the park before I finished this coaster, and in the last episode of my Planet Coaster series, I did just that, so here we are again working on the Zelda coaster. So we have a few things we're going to focus on today. We are going to start this indoor section of the Shadow Temple. We're going to do a lot of cleaning up inside of the castle. We're going to add a new ride inside the castle. And we're going to finish decorating the interior of the main room of the castle. So we're going to get a lot done today, but it's about time we get something done, am I right? So starting off with the inside of this temple, I am taking a lot of inspiration from the Shadow Temple in Ocarina of Time. Mainly the huge room that has a gigantic abyss in the floor that has the guillotines that try to chop you into pieces. Now Planet Coaster doesn't have any guillotine animatronics, but they have these gigantic swinging scythes, which I feel are similar enough to portray and convey the same vibe as giant guillotines. But the main element I'm drawing inspiration from that room of the Shadow Temple is the fact that it seems like the room is a bottomless pit. So that is why I made the pit so deep for this room. And we're gonna make it seem like these platforms just reach down very, very far into some sort of abyss. And then right now this room is full of quite a few lights, but once we get everything built in here, we will delete all of the lights and it'll be a lot more atmospheric. Now this is the first video I've posted of the Zelda coaster since I've started my Zelda randomizer series. So we're gonna have a lot of new Zelda fans on the channel, so hopefully we have a lot more people interested in the Zelda coaster that I've been putting way too much time into. Like, you guys see me spend a lot of time building, but there is so much time that I spend planning, it is crazy. And also right here you see, sometimes I accidentally zoom out of the pit, because sometimes if you use the zoom wheel on the mouse, you can accidentally back your way out of the pit. It'll like go through the ground, but you can't zoom back through it. So every single time I did that, I had to go back into first person camera view and like enter the temple from the long way. So I was always having to be pretty cautious about accidentally leaving the temple. So since we're working on the interior of the temple today, the background music is going to be some of the ambient temple music from various Zelda games. Now, my favorite temple music from Zelda games is definitely the Forest Temple music, because it's really unnerving yet calming at the same time. You enter and it's super spooky, but at the same time it's relaxing. It's a really weird composition, but it's really brilliant. Whenever you're playing Ocarina of Time for your first time and you enter the Forest Temple and you start listening to that music, the music is kind of telling you you're playing with the big boys now. It's about to get serious. And I don't necessarily feel the same way when I entered the Forest Temple now, just because I've played the game so much. And now that I'm older, the graphics do kind of take away from the atmosphere because there is much more realistic graphics nowadays. And it's mostly because I played the game a lot. But the very first time I was playing through Ocarina of Time, I was really freaked out by the music. It was no joke. And then you would read signs and hear stories while talking to the NPCs, talking about Hyrule's bloody past. You enter Forest Temple and you see flying skulls. You fight Stalfos, which are these moving skeletons, which looked way scarier back in the day. Nowadays we're really privileged with super nice graphics, but back then, that stuff looked way scarier than it does now. And then you would enter some rooms with wall masters, these hands that fell from the ceiling that would grab you and take you all the way back to the beginning of the temple. And when you're not very aware of the layout of the temple, that would really throw you off sometimes and get really confusing. It was some serious stuff. Do you guys ever wish you could erase your memory of playing a certain video game? That way you could go back and play it for your first time again? There's so many games where I'd like to go through and explore and take in everything again for the first time, trying to solve the puzzles and just enjoy the game and story, not knowing what's going to happen next. If you guys could erase one video game from your brain entirely so you could replay it again from scratch, what game would you choose? For me, I'd probably have to say Zelda Twilight Princess. I remember when that game first came out. First off, I had been watching the trailer that they had shown at E3 on repeat. I loved the music so much, and I would just watch it over and over again. And that game's story was an experience for me because it's a really long game and it's very, very story driven. So real fast, I try to ride the coaster, But for some reason, sometimes while I'm playing this game, my frame rate will be abysmal. When I was recording this episode, my computer was not doing very well. But then sometimes I'll load up the park and it'll play just fine. The frame rate won't be too bad. But other times, I can barely pause the game. Like right now, the footage looks pretty smooth, but that's because I sped it up to 800%. So that's why the coaster's moving pretty fast, is because I had to speed up the footage a lot so it wouldn't seem super duper choppy. But I recorded this episode in 2 play sessions, and on my second play session while recording this episode, my frame rate was doing fantastic. So I'm not sure what determines whether my frame rate is like good or bad. Sometimes it's just like, it's up to chance at this point. I mean, I restart my computer every single time before loading up this park just to like clear out my RAM, but I don't know. But going back to the reasons why I want to replay Twilight Princess is also I just loved the areas. It was a really fun map to memorize, and the characters were some of the most unique characters I think I've seen in any Zelda game. Apart from maybe Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask also had some pretty crazy characters, although they were the same models from Ocarina of Time, but with more deeper stories. And then on top of that, some of the temples and areas of that game were so cool to experience for the first time. Probably the most interesting, in my opinion, was the Snow Peak ruins with the Yetis. That was such an interesting temple to go through. I just had so many questions while playing through it. Mainly, why do these 2 Yetis own a gigantic mansion up in the mountains by themselves? I always guessed that some humans built it, and then the humans ended up dying off and the Yetis moved in. But what if the Yetis killed the humans and stole the house from them? But if that's the case, then why are they so nice to Link? I don't know, it was always so weird. Also, I just want to add, if during this video I talk about a conversation topic I've already talked about during the series, I apologize. But I've been recording the series over a long time span, so I've kind of forgotten some of the things I've talked about in previous episodes. So if I do re-talk about something, just pay attention to the building and tune me out for a bit. I barely remember what I ate yesterday, let alone what I talked about during videos from months ago. Also, at the beginning of this coaster, I decided to remove that downward helix because it was looking kind of messy, and this coaster is already long enough, so I decided I'd just clean things up a bit and remove that. And also, it is now my job to make this room a bit more spiffy looking, to tidy it up, because a lot of the floor and walls weren't looking too great. I needed to make them look a bit more polished. I'm still having some troubles thinking of some ideas for this room as far as the theming goes. I was thinking about taking some inspiration from the castle of A Link to the Past, but I'm really not sure like what room I would theme it after. Sometimes it's kind of hard to try to make something themed like Zelda when you don't have any official Zelda scenery pieces. Man, I really wish Planet Coaster could start doing some brand deals with some companies that have intellectual property that would be really good to implement into some theme parks. Like if Planet Coaster did a deal with Nintendo to add some Zelda animatronics and pieces to the game, like think of how good a promotion that would be for Planet Coaster and Zelda itself. Like, and then people would be making super cool Zelda coasters that would probably far exceed mine. Like mine is really detailed, but I've seen how other people build things, and lots of people will do stuff that's even cooler than I do. I'm thinking about making the room on the second floor of the castle themed after Kakariko Village, because there's a lot of things from that village I could recreate easily with the Planet Coaster pieces. And then I'll probably end up making this room themed a bit more after like the Temple of Time, something more simple, generic Temple of Time. Maybe have like the Pedestal of Time, the pedestal that you put your spiritual stones into. I'll have to work with it. I have to think about it. This episode I was mainly focusing on kind of cleaning up the castle, just because I wanted to, because once the castle's all cleaned up, then I'll be able to go through with a fresh palette and get more creative with it. But sometimes just doing all this filler work takes a lot of time, but it's also really, really important, or else you have tons of just random holes in the roof. And something else I haven't fully decided on yet is the first half of this Build a Zelda Coaster series. I sped all of those episodes up and put them in to a singular episode of Let's Build the Ultimate Theme Park. And for the second half of this series, I'm not sure if I'm going to speed up those episodes as well and make them another episode for Let's Build the Ultimate Theme Park. What do you guys think I should do? Do you think I should do that or nah? Right here we're putting some bushes and rocks and stuff on the outside of the castle just to naturalize it a little bit. I don't think it would be completely perfectly clean. Need some bushes for Link to slash away at. So So the next thing we're doing is I'm going to put another ride inside of Hyrule Castle, because we have this like huge open room on the other side of the castle, and I needed to do something with it. We have a lot of space and I want to use it, and having more rides is always good. So I'm clearing out the room, making some space, and at first I put a Pesos 3, is what I'm pretty sure it's called. It looks kind of like some sort of fair ride with these like 3 arms that you sit in, and the arms spin as the whole entire wheel itself is spinning. Looks really fun. I really want to go to like a county fair sometime soon, because county fairs can have some pretty fun rides, even though they can be pretty jank and feel like giant death traps sometimes. So that's the ride I built in this episode, but I decided that I'm going to replace it with a roller coaster in the future, because I think a coaster in this room would be cooler than this county-like ride. It doesn't really fit the room, but the coaster is, it is a pretty small room though, so it'll be a kind of smaller coaster. I'm thinking like a steel wild mouse coaster that's really compact, and I can have a couple like layers of flooring in there, maybe fill it with like armor, kind of like make it like a castle dark ride, but it's a roller coaster instead. I don't know why I keep on getting so ambitious with these builds. I feel like the more I work on this park, the more ambitious my ideas get, but the way I justify it is that I try to make the ultimate Planet Coaster series. So I really gotta try to be extra sometimes if I really want to build the ultimate Planet Coaster series. It's just a requirement, it's in the name. I'm not making the series to back out when things seem like they're gonna be hard. I'm making the series to try to make a park that nobody else would ever spend the time creating. And for the rest of this episode, I'm going to focus on the final decorations of this main room from the castle, because I like to try to finish up certain sections before moving on to detailing other sections. So before I detailed the other rooms, I wanted to make sure this room was finished, because I don't like having a ton of things that are halfway done. I needed to get like more aspects done. So we finished the market, we finished the outside of the castle, we finished the first like main temple room earlier this episode, and now we're gonna also finish the interior of this castle. And holy shit, there's a loud ass motorcycle, and it always decides to drive by this apartment complex when I'm recording for some reason. That always pisses me off so bad. But in the next episode, we are going to focus on the station room of this coaster, and we're going to focus on the second floor, which I decided I'm going to turn into a kind of recreation of Kakariko Village. It'll be a much more compact version of Kakariko Village, but it'll still have a lot of the elements, so I think it'll be pretty cool. And I think I might make it on fire and say like, oh, Ganondorf has started attacking Kakariko Village. Link, you have to go destroy him or something. And then you go through Hyrule Field, that's themed after Breath of the Wild, like looping around there, and then you go inside the temple, and then at the end of the temple you like fight a boss fight, and then you go back to the beginning and everything is happy or something. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but we are slowly and subtly making progress on this coaster, one episode at a time. But anyways, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to give the video a thumbs up, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care, guys.